The Bell P-39 Airacobra was an American fighter aircraft developed in the late 1930s and widely used during World War II. With a novel and innovative layout, featuring a mid-fuselage engine placement behind the pilot, it was the first fighter fitted with a tricycle landing gear. With 9,588 P-39s built, they were rejected by the Royal Air Force of Britain due to poor performance at altitude. But in the hands of the Soviet Air Force, it would collect the highest number of kills attributed to any U.S. fighter type flown by any Air Force in any conflict. Elsewhere, it saw limited use with U.S. Army Air Forces in the Pacific, Free French and co-belligerent Italian Air Forces in Europe and the Middle East, and in the period between July 1942 and October 1943, a small number of P-39 aircraft were operated by the Royal Australian Air Force. The formation of the P-39 began in February 1937 when the United States Army Air Corps called for submissions of high-altitude interceptor design, the specifications of which were the highest for a single-engine fighter to date. It nominated a speed of at least 360 miles per hour at high altitude and a climb to 20,000 feet within 6 minutes. It needed to house at least 1,000 pounds of heavy armament, including a cannon, a liquid-cooled Allison engine with a General Electric turbo supercharger, and, oddly, tricycle landing gear. The Bell Aircraft Corporation conceived and designed the XP-39 prototype as a weapons platform. With the unconventional placement of the engine behind the pilot, the nose was freed up for a 37mm T9 cannon and the front-wheel landing gear. The XP-39 made its maiden flight on the 6th of April 1938 at Wright Field, Ohio, achieving an impressive 390 miles per hour at 20,000 feet and reaching this altitude in only 5 minutes. However, the XP-39 was found to be short on performance at altitude. In June 1939, the prototype was ordered by General Henry H. Arnold to be evaluated by the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, which resulted in the turbo supercharger being removed to achieve preferred streamlining. This singular decision meant it now lacked high-altitude performance. The production P-39 would retain a single-stage, single-speed supercharger effective to just 12,000 feet, above which performance declined markedly. But as the prototype was lighter by 2,000 pounds to the later production units that would sport full armaments, self-sealing fuel tanks, and armor, this drawback was not yet evident. Now, with its modifications, it was formerly known as the XP-39B, shifting swiftly to the fully armed P-39C production model, entering service in early 1941. Thankfully, only 20 Model C units were produced before additional armor, increased firepower, and self-sealing fuel tanks were introduced as the Model D. The P-39D had a length of 30 feet 2 inches, a height of 12 feet 5 inches, a wingspan of 34 feet, and a wing area of 213 square feet. Powered by an Allison V1710, 35 liquid-cooled V12 engine producing 1,150 horsepower, the aircraft had a top speed of approximately 368 miles per hour at 14,000 feet, and an operational range of 650 miles, a service ceiling of 30,000 feet, and a rate of climb of about 2,600 feet per minute. For armament, it sported a single nose-mounted 37mm M4 cannon with 30 rounds, 2 synchronized 50 caliber M2 Browning machine guns in the nose, and 430 caliber Browning machine guns mounted in the wings. 429 Model Ds were produced, with several reconnaissance variants converted before what would become, to say the least, a rapid and continual improvement process. The P-39K was one of the first major revisions, featuring a 1,325 horsepower Allison V171063 engine and an Aero Products propeller. A total of 210 units were built. This was followed by the P-39L, which introduced a Curtiss electric propeller and a higher gross weight, with 250 units produced. The P-39M aimed to enhance high-altitude performance by incorporating a V1710-83 engine, which provided 1,200 horsepower and an 11-foot 1-inch Aero Products propeller, making it 10 miles per hour faster than the P-39L at 15,000 feet. A total of 240 were produced, with some modified as the P-39M2 for ground attack roles. The P-39N was a significant production model, originally part of the cancelled P-39G order, and introduced a 1,325 horsepower V1710-85 engine along with aerodynamic and structural modifications. The first 500 aircraft featured a 10-foot 4-inch propeller, while later models increased this to 11 feet 7 inches, reducing internal fuel capacity in exchange for improved flight stability. A total of 900 P-39N1s were built, followed by 128 P-39N2s and 35 P-39N3Bs, which incorporated additional belly armor and reconnaissance equipment. The P-39N5, of which 695 were built, reduced armor weight from 231 to 193 pounds and introduced minor avionics and oxygen system updates, while 84 were converted into the reconnaissance-capable P-39N6. The final and most widely produced variant was the P-39Q, with production concluding in August 1944. The P-39Q1, of which 150 were built, replaced the older wing-mounted 30-caliber machine guns with 50-caliber pods under each wing while increasing armor protection. The P-39Q5, totaling 950 units, adjusted armor weight and increased fuel capacity, with one converted into a 2-seat trainer as the TP-39Q5. Another 148 were modified as the P-39Q6 reconnaissance aircraft. The P-39Q10, with 705 produced, featured additional armor, fuel capacity upgrades, and engine modifications for improved performance in cold weather. The P-39Q15, of which 1,000 were built, introduced structural reinforcements to prevent cracking in critical areas. The P-39Q20, also with a production run of 1,000, featured minor equipment adjustments and sometimes omitted the underwing 50-caliber pods. A total of 109 P-39Q20s were fitted with a 4-bladed Aero Products propeller as the P-39Q21. The P-39Q25, numbering 700 aircraft, introduced further fuselage and stabilizer reinforcements, while the final variant, the P-39Q30, reverted to a 3-bladed propeller and had a production run of 400 units. That's quite a lot of ongoing modification, even discounting the reconnaissance and training version conversions for nearly each model. Unfortunately, it was the original XP-39, with its turbo supercharger, that excited the British RAF with its outstanding performance aspects, and they had already ordered 675 aircraft. The British armament was 2 nose-mounted 50-caliber machine guns, 4 .303 caliber Browning machine guns in the wings, and the 37mm gun was replaced by a 20mm Hispano-Suiza cannon. The British Export C models were renamed Airacobra, and the Royal Air Force took delivery in mid-1941, immediately finding that performance of the non-turbo supercharged production aircraft differed markedly from what they were expecting. Despite desperate remediation attempts by Bell, the RAF deemed the aircraft not meeting their original requirements. They refused to honor their current or further orders. 212 P-39s were sent to Russia, the beginning of the 4,746 P-39s, which were to equip Russian squadrons of the Soviet Air Force, an amount almost half of the total production of all Airacobras during the war. The British P-39s, not yet delivered, were diverted back to the U.S. Army Air Corps, designated as P-400s. 200 P-400s were sent to the 5th Air Force in Australia for service in the Pacific. Despite its shortcomings in the European theatre, the P-39 found a successful niche in the Soviet Air Force, which used it extensively on the Eastern Front. The aircraft's performance was markedly better at lower altitudes, where it could leverage its robust armament and respectable agility. The aircraft's firepower was particularly effective against ground targets, making it a valuable ground attack aircraft in the hands of Soviet pilots. On the Eastern Front, most aerial battles were flown at lower altitudes at around 15,000 feet or less, and here the P-39 proved it could match the speed and agility of the German aircraft. The Soviets amassed an estimated 4,700-plus aerial kills with the P-39, producing 28 aces each, with at least 15 victories flying Airacobras. Alexander Pokrishkin scored approximately 48 victories, and Grigory Rechkalov scored 44 victories in P-39s. The nickname for their adopted Airacobra with Soviet pilots was Kobrushka, Little Cobra, or Kobrastochka, a blend of Cobra and Lastochka, Dear Little Cobra. In the Pacific Theater, American pilots flying the P-39 were able to score a number of aerial victories, though the aircraft's disadvantages at high altitude meant it was at a disadvantage against Japanese fighters, particularly the Mitsubishi A6M0. The most notable P-39 aces in the Pacific included Lieutenant Bill Fiedler of the 36th Fighter Squadron, who achieved 7 confirmed kills. In total, P-39 pilots in the Pacific are estimated to have recorded fewer than 100 confirmed aerial kills before the aircraft was phased out of frontline U.S. Army Air Force service in favor of the P-38 Lightning and P-47 Thunderbolt by late 1943. In North Africa, the P-39 was primarily used for ground attack roles, but it did see some air combat. The 81st and 350th Fighter Groups flew the aircraft against the Luftwaffe and Regia Aeronautica, though they struggled against German fighters such as the Messerschmitt Bf 109. While some aerial victories were recorded, no U.S. pilots became aces in the P-39 in North Africa, and overall air-to-air effectiveness was low. The best estimates suggest that P-39s in North Africa achieved fewer than 50 confirmed air-to-air kills before the type was replaced by aircraft better suited to high-altitude combat, such as the P-51 Mustang. Still, despite it being superseded, the P-39 introduced many new innovations that would later be used on America's first jet-powered airplane, the XP-59 Aerocomet. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this presentation, please like the video and leave a comment below. If you enjoy content like this, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell.